Well, good morning. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. This is the Diamond New Testament Commentary, our weekly walk through the New Testament in its correct and proper chronological order, which has been jumbled, by the way, by the religious powers that be to keep you ignorant of what really happened in the New Testament. But ignorance is no longer enforceable because you can know yourself if you avail yourself of the tools that are available to tell you what's going on. And that's what we're here for. And I do want to encourage you to like this video. I want to encourage you to share this video. And I want to encourage you to subscribe to this channel right now. Go ahead, do it. It enables us to get more views and to get this information out on a greater basis. So let's go ahead and get right into our study today. And we're talking about the book of James. And we just talked about the secret hidden in the book of James, about, up here we had the high level teaching about not having favoritism towards people. And then we had the deeper teaching that showed that it was actually the rich man, Paul, the blasphemer, Paul himself, which was making havoc, wreaking havoc, throwing people in jail, and having a very deleterious effect on the original movement of the Christ. Now we're going to finish up this part of the book of James with another deep teaching. These teachings, it makes me wonder why sometimes, but I think the key is that if you're not ready to receive something, then it sometimes can do more harm than good for you. So I think that in their wisdom, the Elohim word their revelation in a way that people that are ready for it will receive it, and people that aren't ready for it, it'll just kind of go over their heads or in one ear and out the other, so to speak. So I think that's what the Christ was talking about when he said, those that have eyes to see and ears to hear. It's people that are ready to see, understand, and apply the deeper teachings, like it is this specific rich man that is calling you before judgment seats, that's blaspheming, talking specifically about the Apostle Paul and the self-proclaimed Apostle Paul. And here's another big one. When we talk about diamond, we talk about dung. There's a lot of dung here, but this is diamond. If you fulfill the royal law according to Scripture, you'll love your neighbor as yourself, and in that you'll do well. But then you got this part about, if you do this, you're bad, and God's going to get you. So, pretty much from 9 on, it's garbage. It's dung. Because Paul, he's talking up here about Paul, saying Paul is drawing you before judgment seats. Paul is the rich man. Paul is the blasphemer. And then James kind of sums it up and reminds him, look, if you live, or if you fulfill the royal scripture, the royal law, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, you do well. Let's just take a quick look at that in the Greek. We're looking at verse number 8 and see what that has to say. 2:8. If indeed the law, and the word he's talking about is, a law, he's talking about something that, if you follow this tenet, love your neighbor as yourself according to the scripture. That's a good point. Not all, like I've said, a lot of people want to throw out the entire Bible, but there is 25-30% of the Bible that does remain as diamond, and I think that makes it still to be a study worthy of those seeking spiritual enlightenment. But he says, love your neighbor of you as yourself. Well, you are doing. So basically what he's saying is, obviously, if you love your neighbor as yourself, you're doing good. If you love your neighbor as yourself, you're doing good. That seems to be, a very nice teaching, just like the, don't favor rich people. And on that level, it is a nice teaching. And on that level, it does have validity. But there's a much deeper level here. And it's a much deeper level that, frankly, many of you won't be ready for. And you'll fire off nasty comments and you'll question my heritage and tell me that I'm of the devil. And you know what? I get that every single day. So if you're going to do that, try to do something different that I'm not used to. Maybe give me something that I haven't heard before. And that's okay. Because, I mean, silly people are going to be silly people. But there's a great truth hidden in here. Love your neighbor as you love yourself, and you're going to do well. James spent a lot of time, and the apostles of the Christ spent a lot of time proving and showing that you are not filled with original sin. And conversely, proving that you have the spark of divinity within. And the royal law, the highest law, even according to Scripture, is to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, when you realize, and if you're filled with original sin, that makes no sense. You're a dirty, rotten sinner. Why would you love yourself as a dirty, rotten sinner? Well, you wouldn't. And you're even encouraged not to. And why would you love your neighbor if they're just as dirty, rotten sinners as you are? You wouldn't, and you're encouraged not to. What you're encouraged to do by mainline Christianity today is hate yourself until you are sufficiently indoctrinated into the way of Christianity to where you can kind of get to the place where you don't hate yourself, but you do kind of, you're a sinner saved by grace. So in real Christianity, in mainline Christianity, you can never love yourself because you're a sinner. And you can never really love your neighbor either because they're sinners. And the best you can really do is the people that are going to worship God your way and believe your way and read your way and do your way, those people you'll be bros with. But the other people you will hate. And even in that, you'll never ever really love yourself because yourself is dirty, it's rotten, it's foul, it's filled with original sin. And even at your very best, you're a dirty, rotten, filthy sinner who just happens to be saved by grace. And at the very best, you look at your neighbor in the same exact fashion. And, to me, it's impossible. It's not impossible, but it's really funny that people can't see that. Whereas, if you realize that you have the spark of divinity within, and that it is the spark of the very divine that's within you, then loving yourself makes perfect sense. I love me because I know the spark of divinity is within me. I have worth, I have value, and I love that spark of divinity in me. So it's very natural and easy once I've had the revelation of the lie of original sin and the truth of the spark of divinity within. It's very easy to love me. And then it's very easy to love my neighbor because I can realize that not only do I have the spark of divinity within, but my neighbor's got the spark of divinity within as well. So it allows me to love myself, and it allows me to also love my neighbor. And when you're loving yourself because of the spark of divinity within you, you're focused on yourself and developing your own, following the ways and the truths that lead into life. And you're not worried, about your neighbor. What color's your neighbor? Who's your neighbor like to have sex with? What's your neighbor like to do? You don't worry about that. You worry about yourself. And you just love your neighbor as you love yourself because you know your neighbor also has the spark of divinity within. And the neighbor is working out their own deal. This is the high, true meaning of the saying, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. It doesn't mean do whatever the hell you want to. It means Do your own thing. Love yourself. Do what thou wilt. Do your growth. Do your development. Do your following of the ways. Do your following of the truths. Do your pursuit of life. Do what thou wilt, and let your neighbor do what they wilt. And it really is clean up your own backyard. Have the love and respect of your neighbor that you have to yourself, and then everybody gets along. It's really an expansion. It's really a deeper spiritualization, I guess, of what we call the golden rule. The golden rule, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. That's just normal, good stuff. And if you know that they are filled with original or with the spark of divinity, then you'll treat them the way you would treat divinity, because they're full of divinity, just like you are. And if you allow, if you focus on doing your deal and let them do their deal, but with the understanding of original sin, this all goes away. I wanted to show you something in closing where it's really very powerful, and I know some of you are going to balk at this, but that's okay. And we're going to go to Exodus, and we're going to go to chapter 20 of Exodus, and we're going to go to verse number 3. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. And Jesus repeated this in, I believe it was the book of Matthew. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. I'm going to blow your mind with this. And some of you are going to reject it, and that's okay. Because, some of you aren't there yet. It's not for you. I can't pick. There's that T. So thou shalt have no other gods before me. Let me tell you what this is really saying. It's interesting that you would have, the Lord, the bad guy, Yaldabaoth, Jehovah, Yahweh, and you're quoting him. Well, you got to remember, he is a deceiver and a liar, and he will try to misrepresent things. And he takes this statement, thou shalt have no other gods before me, the Lord, I'm your God. Let me beat my chest and show you how a badass I am. And if you don't believe I'm your God, I'll kill your children and your friends and your neighbors, and I'll kill you. That shows you just what a great God I am. But what this is really saying is, and the true spiritual intent of this is, you shall have no other gods before thee in there, before the me. No other gods before the me. Think about it in terms of loving your neighbor as yourself. So you have to love yourself. And to love yourself, you have to realize that you've got the spark of divinity within, and that there's nothing that should be put before the spark of divinity that's within you, before the divine. So you shall have no other gods, no other idols, no other thing that distracts you from the divinity that's in the me. This is being said in first person. I will have no gods before me. I, Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower, will have no other gods before me. Not because I'm such a great guy, but because I've got the spark of divinity within me. So I will have no other gods before me. I'll have nothing that distracts me from the spark of divinity that's within me. I'll have no gods before me. And when I have no gods before me, it's very easy, as I recognize this, it's very easy for me to love me. Love thyself. It's easy to love me. It's easy to love my neighbor when I realize they have the spark of divinity. And in so doing, I fulfill the royal law of Scripture, and I do well. That right there, folks, is what you call some powerful damn teaching. That's some good stuff. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian whistleblower. You keep tuning into this. You keep getting this down on the inside, and before you know it, you're going to start learning how to unindoctrinate yourself.